Hi, Jane. Welcome to the Aspiring Speaker Podcast.
I'm Michael,
And I'm Rick.
and we are the Aspiring Speaker Podcast.
Jane, why don't you tell our audience, the Aspiring Speaker community, about this wonderful event you have coming up in Minneapolis?
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you both. We have an event running on November 17th to 19th, small amount of seats, intimate setting at the JW Marriott. It's called Accelerate Live 2017, and our theme is how to build $1 million speaking business. So some people may not have that dollar figure in their mind, but that's okay. The idea is for people who want to go very, very quickly and move their fees up the ladder. And, maybe your goal is to get to $200,000. Totally cool.
Right.
We have taken my top clients. Lots of people have heard me talk in the Wealthy Speaker 2.0 about Ryan Estes. He actually wrote the foreword for the book. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he was in a corporate job, and he hadn't really thought about having a speaking business. But once the idea came to his imagination while still working, he actually hired me to be his coach. And I thought, wow, that was a good forethought on his part. And about I don't know, maybe 6 months into working together, he called, "I quit my job." He was kind of freaking out a little bit, and he quit his job in the worst time in kind of the history of the economy, one of the worst times. And so he had to accelerate very, very quickly, and he did. So he's got lots and lots of I call him a triple threat. He's a great marketer, he's a great sales guy, and he's really, really, really good from the platform. And because of that, his career has soared. Same thing goes for Kendra Hall. She's also someone that I've been working with for several years, and people hear me talk about her a lot because she's so good. From the platform, she speaks about storytelling, and not only is she a great storyteller, she helps other people develop their stories, and she has just shot up the ladder so very quickly that we're absolutely thrilled that she'll be joining us to share not only the techniques on storytelling, but her journey as well.
Beautiful. Now, on Ryan's story, you've only been working with him for a few years. Is that correct?
Well, we've been together for, I want to say 4 or 5 years, actually.
Okay, which is not a long time in the speaker industry.
No.
Right? So he was still working at his day job, and
yes,
he was speaking a little bit on the side. Is that right?
Yeah, he actually was on the SHRM circuit. So this is Society of Human Resource Managers. He would go out and speak on behalf of his ad agency at the SHRM conferences. So he would do regional conferences, maybe even local chapters to start, and then regional, and then state conferences. And so he became known on that circuit first. He wasn't doing a ton of speaking, maybe a half a dozen a year or something like that. But that did actually help prepare him for what was to come. And SHRM, by the way, is a great organization that leads to a lot of corporate work in the Fortune 100s and 500s. And so that was a really helpful booster for him in that he didn't have to start over from square one.
Right. And do I understand correctly that SHRM is mostly no pay or very low?
Oh, well, some of them back then. I'm quite sure the first, 5 years that he did it, he probably was doing it for free just on behalf of his company. But now, and I, having worked for a speakers bureau before, I've booked speakers into SHRM at some very, very high fees.
Okay.
So I do know that they do pay for some. It just depends on where you're positioned.
That's beautiful. So he was, in that time, he was kind of building his stage presence and his message and getting really comfortable delivering material in front of an audience.
Yeah. And, you're hitting on something that is so incredibly important. Craftsmanship on the platform was something that he had spent some time doing. And because of that, he didn't have such a difficult time getting started. He was already really, really good on the platform. Now, did we make him better? Yes. Over the course of the 5 years, he just kept growing and evolving and transitioning to new heights. And he just kept getting better and better. He never rested.
So
You have some, go ahead.
okay. So you being in the industry for 25 years, and not a speaking professional, but an expert, is that safe to say?
Yes.
Okay. It's the industry is always changing. Give us some keen insight into what you've seen happen with the industry from where you started to your current place now.
I would say that I've seen a couple of really big dips in the economy, which has then changed everything for our industry. So it used to be, oh, you're a professional speaker, great. Let's book you for a year and a half down the road. Don't know what topic it'll be. Just come and we'll figure it out later. Whereas when the economy tightens, all of a sudden it's all about return on investment for the client. You have to deliver bang for the buck. And that's only continued to get more and more and more and more. People want takeaways, they want deliverables, and no longer is a professional speaker necessarily desired, but a smart person who happens to speak, which is why we as speakers are competing with people who blog for a living, consultants,
Right.
experts in lots of different walks of life. And that's, some of us are that as well. So, I'm a coach full time. That's kind of what my mainstay is, but then I'll go out and speak to groups of speakers on occasion. I don't like to travel that much, so I'll do just a few a year. So I would say that the economy dipping has always meant that the purse strings get tightened and that people need to prove ROI in order to get the business. And I think that the fact that it used to be all professional speakers out there speaking, it's now no longer the case.
So it sounds like that, given the current economic environment, that maybe making sure you have picked a lane and your message to that audience that you desire to speak to is important. So love to hear more on that.
Well, I have been preaching pick a lane for a long, long time. And there are people like Ryan who haven't exactly picked a lane. They are kind of in the genre of business, but he hasn't, said performance is my one thing. He'll also speak to sales audiences because he's a sales guy and he can do that and he can deliver really good messages. And for a lot of people, that's their problem, is they're good at so many things, right?
Right.
So the question to ask yourself is, what do I want to be known for 5 years from now? And if you can identify that, you're a lot closer to being able to pick a lane. And I'll give you an example of somebody who I've watched evolve just recently. Mel Robbins is the author of a book called The 5-Second Rule. It's a fabulous book. Everybody should go get it. And I saw Mel speak in Washington at the NSA conference a few years back. And I don't really remember what she talked about. Business, something, whatever. If she would have been talking about the 5-second rule, I would have been all over that. And I'm quite sure that once she figured out what her lane was, and the 5-second rule is all about kind of overcoming the fear that you might have of doing things that challenge you, not letting your brain get involved in the negotiation of, do I get out of bed or don't I, type of thing. The idea is that you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you do it. So it's all about taking action and moving past fear. It's about courage. And so had she talked back then when I saw her speak about the 5-second rule, I know I would have been able to tell you exactly what her speech was about. But because she didn't, and I don't think she had quite nailed her lane yet, I don't remember what she talked about. And so I think picking a lane helps people remember you. I've never said it quite that way, so you heard it here first on this amazing
on the Aspiring Speaker Podcast. Yeah.
So
There you go.
that makes me have two questions.
Okay.
One is the process around picking your lane. Is that like a one and done, or is it evolving? And then two, I don't remember. So let's start with that one.
Well,
The
before we answer number one,
all right,
we'll have to rewind that, and we're gonna put that little
it's going to
statement
be a tweetable.
in the show notes.
It's a tweetable.
It's tweetable also.
That's right.
All right.
So the
Awesome.
process is picking your lane. Should our listeners expect that to evolve over time, or is it a pick it and go with it and no?
Oh, no, it's definitely a moving target. For some people, it will mean going more narrow in their lane. For some people, it might mean taking a step broader in their lane. I think it's something that is kind of fluid, I guess, maybe we'll call it. And our goal is to come to the intersection where passion meets profits.
Right.
Okay, that's our goal. We're passion and profits. And I know, by the way, that we did a podcast earlier together on picking a lane. So maybe that can go in the show notes as well. And we can let folks know that they can kind of do a deeper dive into picking the lane through that as well.
So the piece you said about you would have known what her speech was about if she had talked about the 5-second rule. Does that have anything to do with booking 3 or 4 gigs off of a speaking gig? That being memorable, does that help that?
Yeah, the memorable part is, and Kendra and I were just doing a podcast as well about storytelling. And why is storytelling so effective? It's because people can then tell that story to other people, and that's how you get spin-off. And so I would say it's everything. Picking a lane is really important. And when somebody can call you that guy, oh, Rick, you're that guy, then that's even the more beautiful thing about it, is because they associate it with you. Now that it becomes a bit of a challenge, and you have to re-educate people and tell them what you're doing as you evolve into new lanes. But it's definitely something that I think most people, what'll happen is, I have this process. It's called ready, aim, fire. In the ready stage, we get crystal clear on what we're selling. In the aim phase, we make sure that that's clear in our marketing, i.e. our website. And then in the fire stage, we roll that out to our target market. And when you do that, I'm just trying to think of, I wanted to make sure I explained this correctly. What will happen is people who are reinventing will circle back to ready, and then they'll go through aim, and then they'll start firing again. That was my point.
There we go.
And at your event coming up in November in Minneapolis,
yes,
share with us how much work will you be working on or sharing about that process of picking a lane at that event?
Well, the November event is actually, it's going to be a deep dive into business and marketing. And I would say that if people kind of came prepared, having something in their mind, then they can talk to me about, would it be this lane or this lane? But we're doing kind of like an acceleration program here. So we're not going to be going deeply into picking a lane, because we've got people at mid to seasoned level. Right. How's that?
So it would be a good idea then for our audience who are planning on going to pick up Wealthy Speaker 2.0.
Absolutely.
And then have at least narrowed down a couple of ideas.
Yes.
On what their message is, what they want to be known for 5 years from now. So then going into that event,
right,
they'll be able to really accelerate their career.
Traction will be already there, and then they can just add on to what you will be sharing with them.
Yeah. And one of the things that I often say at the beginning of my presentations is, okay, identify where you are. Are you in ready? Are you in aim? Or are you in fire? And then if you're gathering information for ready, you're going to keep files on aim and fire, and you're going to go to those later. So I'm thinking our day one is all about the stories of how Kendra and Ryan accelerated so very quickly to the top of their fields. And I think probably for people who are kind of new to intermediate in the industry, that will be an incredibly aspirational day. You know, people will be like, okay, that's where I want to be. I want to be up on that stage, or I want to be on those types of stages that they're getting. They're
Right.
getting some really, really amazing gigs at some really good fees. And so I think that's kind of, you'll put that in your pocket and go, okay. And then you'll be taking lots and lots and lots of notes. And some of it you'll use immediately, and some of it you will have in your pocket for later on. But it's the idea is that you're massively reducing your learning curve.
Yeah. I think it's great that you're bringing Ryan and Kendra along to the event, because I love the quote, success leaves clues. And so just being able to hear their stories of what they did, some stories of what maybe some lessons learned are, things that didn't go so well. For example, on my Facebook, I shared when I lost a $5,000 speaking gig because I didn't have a good video.
Oh.
Right. So I'm sure I'm sharing that. It's hard for me to share that, but I'm sure Ryan and Kendra have some similar stories of.
Absolutely. They definitely did not land at the top of the mountain. And Kendra's still kind of even on her way up, but they have both, some of the mistakes that Ryan made, Kendra learned from, so she did not make the same mistakes. And, this industry is like any industry where you have ups and you have downs and you have difficult situations. And I know that they're both going to kind of open the kimono and just kind of let everything go, because their path is something that other people can definitely learn from and potentially avoid some of those mistakes.
Would you like to learn how to avoid some mistakes?
Absolutely.
I would too.
Yes.
The how do you address the balance between stage performance, stage presence, the art of delivery, and storytelling is certainly part of that, but balancing that between the business side? How is that?
In terms of importance?
Well, how does a speaker balance that? When do you know you should be working on marketing, or your messaging isn't right, or when should you be working on your presentation?
Great question. Great question. When you know you can rest on your presentation, when you know you don't have to be working on it constantly anymore, is when you're getting 2 to 3 spin-off engagement from every gig. Once that starts to happen, and there will be some times when that's just not the audience that's going to happen, and that's okay, right?
Right.
But once that is happening, then you can maybe take your eye off that ball for a little bit and really go full on with marketing. People will say, I'm not getting any business and the problem is my marketing. Well, if you've been giving speeches, then the problem is probably still somewhere in the presentation. And it's either the presentation isn't there yet, or people aren't able to tell other people concisely enough what it was that you did for them. And I think that sometimes means going from a lot of people try to give too much information in their presentations, and when they drill it back to something that's more simple and tell more stories, it actually ends up being a beautiful thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. If our listeners and viewers want to see you know more, they can check out episode 7 on the Aspiring Speaker podcast.
That's right.
How to give a speech that listeners will remember.
That's right.
Perfect.
Our guest on that episode was Jane as well, but
Exactly.
we didn't get to see Jane as well.
Right, but we're putting a name and a face.
That's right. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. All right. So recap. November. What are the dates? November.
Okay, November 17th to 19th. We've actually made it for a busy speaker. We start at 2 o'clock on the Friday. We finish at noon on Sunday. Fly into the JW Marriott right near the airport, right next door to Mall of America, by the way. and spend the time with us. We actually have some cocktail receptions that we're going to have to make sure that you get to talk to people who are presenting. We've got our team members there who are also wealths of information. And several of the speakers that are coming are bringing their marketing person or assistants as well. So I actually think we might even get a little community of team going from it also. The full day on Saturday is going to be action-packed 9 to 5. We're going to do presentations in the morning, deep dive on storytelling with Kendra, and then all things to, kind of sharpen your game from the platform. Ryan will talk about how he continues to get so many spin-off from every event. Why is that happening? For very specific reasons. And then from there, we forward into marketing, and more marketing. And we'll talk a little bit about teams and allow people to have Q&A with the team members as well.
Will the attendees have some time with Ryan and Kendra as well as yourself?
So in the, there's lots of kind of networking moments, including meets and greets and cocktail parties. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll also have lots of access to them up on the stage where there'll be lots of audience Q&A.
Right.
Lots of
Great.
And you mentioned at the beginning it's going to be small. So what does that mean?
Well, that's 75 people only.
Wow.
And we're going to have a beautiful room at the JW Marriott. And the reason we didn't want to do 150 people is because that way it will be much easier to really know who everybody is and what their stories are.
I think that's a great approach. And even though we're connected, because if it wasn't for technology, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But there's something about
technology.
Thank you. But there's something about being face to face, sitting
Yes.
across the table from somebody in the real,
Right.
not in the virtual world, but in the real world. And I love the idea of having, I don't think I know the idea of having 75 people together rather than a bigger group will make the connections more meaningful.
Yes, absolutely. And I see no reason why everyone can't meet and mingle with everybody who's going to be in the room. And there will be lots of people at lots of different levels. So, if you're aspiring to be a $10,000 speaker, you might end up sitting right next to somebody who already is, which will be a really nice thing.
And those conversations are such a wonderful opportunity to find somebody. I always look for if they can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily from a condescending standpoint, but from an encouragement standpoint.
I feel a little condescending coming from.
Well, it's not
no, that's condensation.
Yeah, a little glow on my forehead. By the way, Michael, I miss bad hair days.
I have them all day, so.
So having an opportunity to find somebody who, I was at a seminar and he said, find a mentor who started at a worse place than you did. And he said, because otherwise you'll use excuses. So when you find that person who started with less or started in a more difficult position, it takes that power away from any excuses. So
it really does. And one of the great reasons, Ryan is not a married man, but Kendra has 2 young children, 5 years old and under. So she actually can really relate to the people who it's difficult, much more difficult to be a road warrior. Now, Ryan's doing kind of double the engagement. So he's got a whole different set of issues and problems that come with that. And burning out is definitely something that is top of mind for all of us in his camp. So there's lots of different things that come to it. And I think that it's great to know that everybody's starting from wherever they are. We'll kind of meet you where you are. And I think for some people, it'll just be, okay, yeah, if they could get over that, then I can get over this. Or if she can do that, then I can do that too, or him. So
yes.
Agreed.
With what you're saying and what Rick was saying, if you have, if you're on a certain level and you come to the Accelerate Live 2017, you'll get what you need: ready, aim, fire, and put you on that path that you're looking for, that you're desiring to reach?
I love the idea of, for aspiring speakers, people who might be just starting out, is to do an amount of homework to go through that ready process and really kind of have a more clear lane identified before coming. I think that would be a really good piece of homework. That was actually your idea, Rick, so I got to give you props for that.
Oh, thank you.
Brilliant.
I need all the props I can get. If I don't have hair, I need props. So we'll link to I think the Wealthy Speaker 2.0 book would be the best resource for that, or do you have?
Yep. We know that's a perfect resource. The exercises are right in the book.
Good.
And one of the benefits that people will get, actually, maybe they pick up the ebook or something like that because it's only $10. But actually, when you come, a part of registration is the book and the Epic Keynote book, as well as hot off the press, the Wealthy Speaker Daily Success Planner and Journal. That's something that will help you start your day off right every single day. And we're in the throes of working on that right now. I'm super excited. I can't wait to get it in my own hands so I can start using it every day.
Yeah, that sounds like a resource that has been in not only in the makings from your experience, but really something that's needed to just day by day working towards that. Right.
Yes.
All right, Jane. Well, that about wraps our time. Thank you so much for putting up with Michael
and Rick.
Right, you guys are so cute.
Yeah, my wife doesn't think so. She sits on the couch when we're recording episodes and just rolls her eyes.
Oh, that's funny. You're adorable.
All right, we are the Aspiring Speaker Podcast.